All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Friday Eve. Thank you for taking the time to spend the next 45 minutes here with us. Hopefully, you all are having a great Ignite so far. I love this idea of the immersive experience with the headset. It's brilliant with the different rooms here. Hope it works well for you as well. But thanks, first of all, for making the session. I know they changed rooms on this topic, and so thanks for embracing the change, braving all the logistics, and being here. And they saved the best session for last, right? Like we're near the end of the conference. I hope to spend the next 45 minutes or so covering some key topics, hearing from you as well. We'll leave time for Q&A and hopefully add value to you, which is really the core objective and intent of the session and the conference. So first, to begin with, my name is Pradeep Raman. I'm Vice President in Customer Success at Microsoft. And in my role, essentially, I have responsibility for the delivery strategy and execution that we do from the customer success organization for what we call the cloud and AI platforms business, essentially the Azure business. Super excited to be here. Exciting times, certainly for our solution area, the solution space, our industry, and great to get into this discussion with you all. First, by show of hands, just for my reference, how many of you are from financial services industry? Okay, a majority. Good. Okay. Great. So I want to kind of frame the why and some of the key objectives in terms of financial services industry perspective and priorities. But much of what I will cover certainly has applicability horizontally to multiple industries and to other industries as well. So welcome to get that out of this. So as we look across, the financial services industry and certainly other industries as well, whether it's banking, capital markets, insurance, and so on, the pace of change is certainly accelerating. I think you would agree. You live that probably every day, and with that acceleration comes, a new wave of challenges that companies need to address. And when we talk to many of your peers, many of the companies around the world, some of the key themes that surface as top challenges include these four kind of key pillars, right? I think your end customers or customers in general are expecting digital-ready, digital-first experiences as part of what the baseline expectation is. From an insurance perspective, you see the stats, 74% plus of policyholders want a rich digital experience. When we look at cybersecurity, the pace of kind of the threats and the scale and volume of the threats is accelerating at the same time that the regulatory compliance requirements are also growing. You probably know this firsthand as well, whether it's data privacy laws, sovereignty, and so on. And this combination of the security threats and the regulatory requirements rising puts a lot of stress and challenge certainly on the companies in financial services. And certainly the data is a siloed impact of having fragmented data in different systems makes it extremely challenging to really apply AI effectively to get insights, right? And cost and complexity, all of that rises. And then last but not least, the challenge that we will tackle more directly in today's session, which is migration modernization of legacy systems. 55% of the financial services companies that we surveyed kind of listed this as one of the top constraints for transformation, for applying AI. The fact that whether it's their banking system, claims processing or any of the core mission critical systems or the homegrown kind of applications, majority of them being on older versions, legacy versions of the platform, has been a significant challenge for companies to kind of really maximize the AI impact and benefit. And it's not just the scale and volume of those legacy systems, it's what it takes to modernize each one, which has really contributed to this challenge, right? The fact that the modernization until now has been kind of a largely manual intensive effort, very little kind of, I'll say less than 20% automation and tooling, app by app rather than kind of doing this at scale or in parallel across tens or hundreds of apps. All of these factors have kind of contributed to making this really a key challenge for the industry. And when we look at what is the common thread across these challenges in terms of how we can tackle them, you guessed it, it's the application and adoption of AI, right? And I'm sure I'm not sharing any breaking news here and saying that all the surveys of the industry leaders have kind of summarized that the impact for the industry in adoption of AI is going to be profound. 87% of the leaders are planning to use AI and agents to scale their capacity. There's general consensus that companies leading in the application of AI are going to see a 10 to 15% incremental impact on margin, and 80% of the insurance executives have, kind of just as a sign of their level of conviction that there is 80% of insurance executives are convicted on the value that AI is going to bring to their business. And in fact, 65% of them putting their money where their mouth is, if you will, in terms of investments, hard investments of $10 million plus into AI. So when we look at kind of, what is it that we can do for AI adoption, I truly believe we're at a kind of a frontier moment right now, in the sense of the cloud maturity and the cloud technologies and maturity is converging with AI maturity to really create a level of automation and scale across both development and operations, right? Building solutions and operating solutions that is really going to be at the center of driving this profound impact that we seek. And when we look at kind of transforming both development and operations, the agentic cloud operations, the agent-based execution is really going to be at the center of this frontier moment, bringing together the various kind of, ops challenges and priorities that we have, whether it's data operations, security operations, IT operations, and so on. And Azure, we truly believe is going to lead this frontier moment, and I want to talk to you about kind of the how and what you will get from Azure, from Microsoft, as we pursue this objective of really enabling this frontier moment and helping you and your companies become frontier. And this is not just theoretical. There are real scenarios, real companies driving this execution in various forms and levels of scale already today, whether it's Barclays kind of enriching employee experiences with AI, PIMCO really driving growth through reinventing and reimagined client experiences, Manulife really leveraging AI for developer productivity to change business process with great effect and impact. And AXA, for example, bending the curve on innovation, not only in terms of employee productivity, but really applying AI for top-line growth. So the move towards kind of agentic cloud and using agentic cloud to transform your business has already begun and is underway. And I want to kind of walk you through how Microsoft can be the best partner for you on this journey in enabling you to become frontier. And I'm going to talk about it in two parts, because at Microsoft we believe it's not just enough or sufficient to share a bunch of compelling innovations that we are bringing to market. We also need to provide the best-in-class implementation guidance and support. When we combine this best-in-class innovation with best-in-class implementation delivery guidance for you, that's when really we can create acceleration and create magic together. So let's talk about the innovation piece first. And GitHub Copilot is at the center of how we at Microsoft are innovating to really accelerate developer and automate developer productivity. In the agentic world and the agentic cloud on Azure, the agents don't just assist, right? They also act autonomously. And that's really where the power of the innovation comes to life for your business. And in that sense, we'll see as we go further into the discussion that GitHub Copilot is the innovation engine that will not only assist developers, but indeed act autonomously on their behalf to get tasks done at scale. And we're going to talk about using this to modernize .NET and Java applications for legacy .NET and Java apps, for example, which number in the tens of millions, frankly, around the world across all companies. So the opportunity and the need for scale is truly massive, and GitHub Copilot is going to bring that developer productivity and transformation to life. And when you combine that, so while GitHub Copilot really modernizes the code and does that at scale and with high degree of productivity, Azure Copilot with its agents, the Azure Migrate agent and other agents that we'll talk about, really helps take that code and migrate, deploy, and manage at scale and with a high degree of productivity. And when you bring these two things together, that's the power of creating automation and creating action across both development and operations that Azure will kind of bring to help you get to frontier. So that's the innovation part of the story. How does Microsoft help you deploy and implement these innovations, or bringing things to life, getting stuff, accelerating the deployment, because that has also been a big constraint and barrier in many ways. Yes. We're good? Everyone hear me okay? All right, sorry about that. So we talk about the innovation part, which is absolutely fundamental, foundational, critical. It's at the heart of what Microsoft does, if you will, bringing innovation to the market, to you in terms of the tools and the platform capabilities. But like I said, I think we feel strongly that that alone is not sufficient. We also need to bring best-in-class implementation support to accelerate the deployment, because that has also been a constraint for speed of adoption, if you will, of to realize the true benefit of AI. And in that respect, the way Microsoft is really bringing a differentiated and holistic approach to providing deployment support for all of you. And we have these three engines, I'll call it the delivery engines, that provide execution guidance as well as enablement and support throughout the life cycle of your adoption journey, of your cloud journey. Most customers have have a unified agreement with Microsoft that covers typically not just the reactive support services, but proactive services to improve platform health and adoption. And that is our engine for delivering targeted outcomes that will advance platform health in every project. So every project of yours typically needs key outcomes like upscaling or architecture review or solution optimization, and our engine for delivering those targeted outcomes across all your projects is the unified delivery engine. And then I'll talk about the AI consulting piece. As most people already know, we have the richest, and I'll say the best and broadest and biggest partner ecosystem in the industry, along with our own professional services. That is our engine for really driving transformation projects and journeys end to end for our customers. And then the new kind of engine recently that we have really launched publicly in the market and driving for the past year or two is our Cloud Accelerate Factory, which is our hero engine offering or benefit under the Azure Accelerate program. So Azure Accelerate is your one-stop shop, if you will, for all Microsoft programs related to adoption of Azure workloads. And one of the programs, one of the offerings in there that we have added in the last year or two is Cloud Accelerate Factory, which is all about providing hands-on delivery from Microsoft as a fully invested offer with a predefined scope of work, right? It's not open-ended. It's not Microsoft providing open-ended consulting as a full investment, but a scope that is designed to jumpstart your Azure journey is what the factory offering focuses on. And just, we talked about Unified and the benefits and the value proposition of Unified is really about empowering your cloud success, ensuring fundamentals, platform fundamentals such as security and resiliency and architecture, optimized implementation are all built into your solution, and then really enabling you both from a platform perspective and skilling perspective for AI innovation. And you see the link there to learn more and review the offerings that are available in Unified. I encourage you to really think about, for every Azure project that you are implementing, how do you maximize the use of this engine that already exists in most cases in your company. And as I said, Azure Accelerate is the one umbrella program or one-stop shop, if you will, for providing assistance to customers on all Azure journeys. And within that, our hero benefit, if you will, is this Cloud Accelerate Factory, which is really hands-on delivery from Microsoft, provided at zero cost. Of course, the delivery being from Microsoft, the best practices and technical risk mitigation, if you will, is kind of built in to the offering, and it allows you to be efficient and scale your resources to kind of do the more advanced cloud journeys while leveraging this benefit from Microsoft for covering the fundamental jumpstart scenarios across all Azure workloads. And we've really offered this investment in a pretty broad scope of workloads. Nearly every Azure workload and scenario has some part of the scope that can be delivered by the Cloud Accelerate Factory as an investment from Microsoft to accelerate your journey. And you can see it ranges from migration modernization scenarios to analytics and AI deployments, Oracle and SAP migrations to Azure, and desktop virtualization and much more. But we'll spend a minute. I want to double click on kind of the migration modernization piece of the core, data infra applications as the focus of our session. And I'll go straight into what is this agentic modernization about, or how do you action and implement? What actions can you take? How should you get started on this journey? And I really want you to think about the three kind of buckets of use cases or scenarios where agentic modernization can really have a big impact in accelerating your journey to the cloud. The first is, I'll call it upgrade and migrate, which is essentially targeted at the legacy .NET Java applications, as I said before, that have been largely manual and labor intensive, if you will, to tackle, especially if you want to do it at scale. And with the GitHub Copilot app modernization agent, with specific agents for upgrading .NET and for Java, and the link to those assets are on the slide when you get them. We are seeing significant benefits and impact in these solutions. In fact, up to 97% productivity improvement. And the quote that I put there at the bottom is really for a scenario where we did exactly that. It was .NET, legacy .NET applications that were modernized to Azure. And this customer was estimating the effort for that project to be 6+ months, almost on a per application basis, with a team of resources and so on, and bringing agentic approach to this, leveraging GitHub Copilot and the upgrade agents. We essentially modernized the legacy .NET application that was being estimated at 6 months in under 4 hours. As the customer said, it really, this really kind of causes him to stop and rethink all the assumptions that he had in mind for the word modernization, right? I think the word modernization has typically kind of been the realm of multi-months, multi-millions of dollars types of engagements and projects that are costly, complex, and disruptive even, to a world where we're able to get 90% plus automation across the life cycle for that journey. And that to me is the number one opportunity, I think, for you in your organization to really, if you're looking for quick wins, significant wins, I think looking at your legacy .NET Java apps that maybe previously were shelved because of assumptions that it's too complex to modernize, I would strongly encourage you to look at the GitHub Copilot app modernization agent and rethink what's possible in this new agentic approach. The second scenario I'll put on your priority list is about automated deployments. I think very well, most companies today want to have a robust cloud deployment capability, not a manual kind of going to the portal and point and click approach, but rather a scripted approach that ensures that the securities and policies and standards of the organization are built in. But the challenge has been that developing those scripts, whether it's Bicep, Terraform, infrastructure as code, if you will, developing that at scale for all your applications has been, again, a manual and labor-intensive, developer-intensive effort. And with the GitHub Copilot agent, or the Azure agent for infrastructure as code, we are able to do this at scale and across all of your estate to really make automated deployment a reality with standards and policies built in. And then last but not least, there's scenarios where you have targeted, it's not about upgrading the entire stack, but targeted components of your application stack that may need a refresh, whether it's drivers, out-of-date drivers, or other components. And again, using an agent-based execution, we're able to do that with speed, scale, and consistency and quality. And just to double click a bit on especially the first two scenarios, in terms of the life cycle of what we're talking about with the GitHub Copilot modernization agent, it's covering the full life cycle of that modernization journey. The entry point is literally, can be, if you're looking to modernize one app or a portfolio or your estate, all a certain portfolio of apps, the entry point can be kind of doing the discovery, the initial discovery with tools like Azure Migrate, Cast, Docker Migrate, and so on. And essentially, the output of that discovery gets converted to GitHub issues. It's not just static and sitting offline. It's converted to GitHub issues, and from there, the GitHub Copilot agent goes to work in terms of assessing those for each issue, assessing, upgrading if needed, whether if it's a older version of .NET Framework or older version of Java and so on, doing the migration move and including code remediation as needed, whatever's needed to move that to the cloud, doing the unit testing, automating that part, containerization as well, if that's needed and involved in your scope, and automated deployment, as I mentioned. So the whole life cycle being managed through GitHub Copilot, through agents, really creates that scale and speed and consistency that we need to unlock modernization at scale. And similarly, on the infrastructure as code, some common challenges that I'm sure you're familiar with. We have fragmented documentation. It's bespoke in terms of the development effort, a lot of dependencies that don't get discovered or addressed until after the development, a lot of manual corrections and so on. And the solution here, again, is the infrastructure as code agent that we will deploy from Azure Copilot, where we're able to have natural language conversation interface and accept all types of artifacts as input to kind of to gather the requirements. And the output that we create, the script that we create for automated deployments are built on Azure verified modules, which if you're not familiar with, are essentially best practices from Microsoft that are prepackaged and available in a modular form for you to incorporate into your solution. So when you are provisioning a VM or provisioning any Azure resource, that all the best practices around it are built into that provisioning action. You don't have to provision a generic VM and then go set up all these best practice configurations. So using Azure verified modules is a huge impact, not only in productivity, but quality and security and all of the platform health stuff that you need. And all of this orchestrated with the AI agents and doing at scale is really the solution for doing this, achieving the scale that we seek. So putting these together, I'll just kind of share a kind of a customer engagement experience of putting both the innovation and the implementation pieces together. A scenario where the customer was behind schedule on a large-scale migration, modernization. In that particular case, the primary challenge was on the manual deployments, enterprise-grade deployments that were required as policy, were having to be developed and created and deployed one at a time, and was really constraining their speed of deployment. There was a significant investment from various sources that was all consumed, and we still hadn't made progress on the deployment. And leveraging the Cloud Accelerate Factory, which is, again, a benefit of the Azure Accelerate program, plus the innovations on GitHub Copilot and the infrastructure as code agents, we were able to accelerate that deployment literally in weeks, something that had been in progress for a couple of years. And the agentic modernization with the IAC agent was the key to success on this particular engagement. So in closing, let me just summarize some things for you, and I'd love to leave the last 10 minutes or so for any questions, comments, feedback, any experiences you want to share on your side as well. But the key things I'll call out for you is, number one, reset your assumptions. I kind of refer to it informally as the DeepSeek moment for modernization is here. All the assumptions we had about what it will take to modernize, put that aside for a minute, because the agentic AI capabilities that can be applied to the life cycle of modernization changes the equation, changes the economics, changes the time to value dramatically, completely. And so I encourage you to put aside your assumptions and really look at what are the priority business items that need modernization. As I think I shared earlier, if I didn't, there's a stat of 37% of enterprise applications out there, again, both packaged software and homegrown software, have been categorized as being legacy and in need of modernization. So I'm sure all of you have some part of your IT estate that really needs to be modernized. I encourage you to go after that with these innovations and the implementation guidance from Microsoft. Maximize the use of the Cloud Accelerate Factory, aka.ms/Azure Accelerate. You'll have that link in the slide. This is where you can go on azure.com to learn all about the offerings and capabilities there. And lastly, I think it's not just a moment for outsourcing the modernization. I think allocating your resources to make sure they're part of as a joint delivery of these modernization journeys is a key to success. In my view, I think to not only ensure the application of your standards, but also building capabilities in your organization on this critical technology and innovation journey ahead of us. So with that, I will close, and thank you for your time and attention on this. We have about 10 minutes or so. I'd love to take any questions, comments, if we can. Thanks for hanging in there. Yes, please. Yeah. So I think the question Tom had really was about my comments on rethinking assumptions on this modernization journey, and how can I add a little more color or double click on that. And I think the key things I'll call out is really typically the cost, complexity, effort, right? Effort estimation was the most important thing. I would say, I think when you're developing a plan for modernization, there's typical assumptions of, solving this by adding people, and are you able to hear me okay? Yeah. So, I think instead of solving this by adding people, adding hours, adding effort, really looking at what can agents do, what can agentic AI kind of unlock and do, I think it was the key learning that I would share, and that's the key assumption, and that has a direct impact on cost, complexity, business risk as well. I think there's a lot of times modernization projects get slowed down or constrained by the perceived risk, if you will, because of the large manual effort involved, where your businesses don't want to modernize. They feel it's a more of a risky project, and there's risk of business disruption. When it is tools-based and AI-based and automation-based, 90% plus automation across the life cycle, I think the risk equation changes significantly as well. So I think those are the key areas I would encourage us to re-examine our assumptions on that. Yeah.
You focused on GitHub Copilot and Azure Copilot.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if your team's experience, like we needed 2 more Copilots, like 3 more.
So yeah, I think the GitHub Copilot and the Azure Copilot are really umbrella solutions. I think the question from Tom again was like, do we need more Copilots? Do we need more than that? I think within GitHub Copilot, you have a code analyzing agent, for example, a upgrade agent. So you have kind of agents doing subcomponents of the life cycle involved. Similarly, on the Azure side, the infrastructure as code agent, and so there will be more. There will be, and the other thing I'll point out is the power of kind of customization. Besides the agents that are coming out, at a fast and furious pace, both from Microsoft and our partners, and your own ability to build agents, there's also custom instructions that you can provide to create custom work done through GitHub Copilot. So I think the combination of available off-the-shelf agents, agents you can build tailored for your business, and the power of kind of doing custom instructions with GitHub Copilot really is the way I would approach a large-scale modernization effort.
So you wouldn't include the end users in this process?
The end users, I think from when we're talking about modernizing the application, I think there's an end user engagement more in the testing, the functional testing, and those, but I think I'm talking about using AI and agents in creating the, yes, yeah, exactly. All right. Anything else? Yes, please. Go. Yeah, so the question is for me to elaborate on the Cloud Accelerate Factory a bit. Good question. So essentially, Cloud Accelerate Factory is Microsoft customer success resources providing hands-on delivery in a fully invested model. And it's typically a joint delivery with our partners and customer to complete the cloud journey. So the Cloud Accelerate Factory is not doing the entire cloud journey, but it's targeted, predefined scope of work that is designed to jumpstart your journey. And for that scope of work, we are providing that delivery, hands-on delivery from Microsoft at zero cost. And the intent here is really to show our kind of commitment to acceleration of your cloud journey, right? Like that is, we are all in. We have our skin in the game to accelerate your deployments, your project deployments, and we're doing that through this program under Azure Accelerate of the factory. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. Exactly. Well, so I think I would separate the migration and modernization of your solution from new enhancements, re-architecture, new kind of new feature development. I think. Oh,
Thank you. So in your example, you mentioned the legacy applications. Maybe the architecture for the legacy application was very different.
yes.
When you move on to cloud or migrate onto cloud,
Yes.
the architecture might look slightly different.
Yes.
And I was referring to that re-architecture.
No, that re-architecture of legacy to bring it over to what is needed for running on the cloud is taken care of by the agent. That's what the upgrade and migrate agents in GitHub Copilot are doing. They're applying the patterns that are best practices, and if there's certain .NET framework versions that are required for compatibility with Azure, if they're applying the upgrades if needed to get that compatible. And now they will not rewrite. If you want to kind of completely re-architect your solution to microservices and break it up into different, like that would be a separate effort. That's not part of migration and modernization. That's what I meant by re-architecture. The architecture of the migration and modernization part is taken care of by the agents. Yeah, and that's what creates the scale.
And just the last question from my
Yeah.
side then. With our previous migrations, the teams needed to learn how to use the biceps and the ARM templates and configuration of the VM and so on and so forth. Now with this I wouldn't call it auto migration, but with the help of GitHub Copilot, whether you need to spin up a VM, to use the containers, so on and so forth, will it be done by the agentic AI agent?
Yes, but I think there is also a step in the journey of creating a migration plan, right? Like this is the recommended migration plan. These apps can move as is. These apps need some level of remediation and so on. So you have the opportunity of kind of, reviewing and making that decision. The cost analysis and those things will be part of that step, and will be part of, you'll still be in control in terms of what you are approving to move from a migration standpoint. But yes, I think when the agent is kind of designing the destination, the right destination for this source, the cost analysis, everything will be derived from that. Okay. Thank you everyone. Great to, and have a great rest of the conference.
Thank you for joining us at Microsoft Ignite's Silent Stages. Please leave your headset at your seat as you exit. Thank you for your cooperation.